I'm a 3 times Guinness World Record holder. And what I do for a living is often described by female as an experience better than sex. For you to understand whom I wanted to be and who I became instead, I have to tell you a little bit my story. When I was a teenager, I wanted to have all the things we all want to have in life. I wanted to have an amazing mansion, a flashy car, a hot smoking wife, and of course have the money to travel the world. For that reason, I went to university and graduated from law school to make sure I would fulfill all the goals. In 2002, I decided out of the blue that I wanted to go to England to learn the language, and I left Venezuela, the country where I was born, and family and friends, and the comfort of my home, to go and learn the language. I was terrified because I didn't speak a word of English. I was there alone. So my thought was, you cannot let this stop you from doing the things you want to do. So in England, despite of my qualifications, I had to do pretty much anything in order to survive. Cleaning toilets, wiping floors, looking after elderly people in care homes. But the beautiful thing about all this is I learned how to walk in someone else's shoes. I learned how a cleaner feels like. I learned how a waiter feels like, because I had to do all these jobs. In 2003, I went back to Venezuela after saving a little bit of money with my 3 jobs to visit my family and friends. And out of the blue, I decided that I wanted to try skydiving. You see, skydiving, normally people start with a tandem skydive to make sure if skydiving is for them or not. My friends were mocking me around, saying, if you do a tandem skydive, we're never going to talk to you again, you're going to be a girl. So I was stupid enough to go for the full course. Anyways, I go to the place where we're doing the skydive. I'm climbing in the plane to 4,000 meters, and I was shaking. As you can see, I'm a little bit brown. I was completely pale. And I was thinking, what the hell am I doing? There's no need for me to be doing this. And right after that moment, the instructor comes very close to me and says, are you ready to skydive? And I go, no, no, and they open the door. They dragged me out of that plane. I don't know how they did it. Of course, I'm a little bit small, so it's easy to do it. They hung me there, and off we went, free fall. You see, free fall is something very, very difficult to explain. I think there are no words to describe what a human feels in free fall. Your brain can only process the information passed to it by your body feeling and by your sight. So there is really no chance for you to see or to think whether you have milk in the fridge or not. Once that parachute opened and I realized that I was still alive, I managed to land it, and I decided, this is it. This is what I want to do for a living. I want to become a professional skydiver. I'm sure my mom wanted to kill me after paying for university, but that's the way it is. Like any other profession, skydiving requires that an individual obtains qualifications in order to become a professional skydiver. That was my plan from the very beginning, to make sure that I was on top of the game. So I became a coach, I became a skydiving instructor, a coach examiner, skydiving instructor examiner. I became a professional exhibition jumper, who is the person that jumps in very tiny places like stadiums and in the middle of the street. I also became one of the many safety and training advisors from the United States Parachute Association around the world. All this, from the very, very beginning of my career, I was always inclined to do things that people consider dangerous or that require a lot of planning and expertise. And I think that's where my motivation comes from presenting myself with a challenge and work towards making it safely achievable. The problem with this is the more experience you gain with all these kind of crazy things, as you guys normal people call me, is that the more information you have in this little crazy brain, the more afraid you're going to be, because you're able to measure the outcome of your mistakes. All these qualifications and all these things took me to Dubai, where I became the assistant operation manager of Skydive Dubai. I was there for 5 years. There, I did things that I never thought I would be able to do, and I met people that I never thought I would be able to meet. Yeah, with friends, you know, like. In 2014, I set 2 new Guinness World Records by landing with the world's smallest and fastest parachute. If you're wondering how small this parachute is, I brought it here with me so you can see it. To give you a little bit more of an example, I'm going to give you some technical details a little bit better explained. A tandem parachute that is designed for 2 people measures around 33 square meters and has a vertical descent of approximately 25 kilometers an hour, basically going down. Experienced skydivers use parachutes that are 3 to 5 times bigger than this parachute. This parachute measures only 3.2 square meters. It was manufactured in New Zealand by amazing engineers. And it's pretty much the size of a single bed sheet. So if you go on your bed and you cover it with your sheet, it's pretty much the same surface. The average speed that we reached during the project was 120 kilometers an hour vertical speed. And the maximum speed recorded was, with this parachute, was 180, which is only 20 kilometers an hour less than free fall speed. We had many, many challenges with these projects. I'm going to pass you some information. Here you can see a little bit the comparison between the parachutes. Acrobatic pilots suffer from G-force. G-force is given to the quick acceleration of a body. I knew if this parachute would start turning violently, and I didn't know how to deal with G-force, I would possibly pass out and die. For that reason, we went to a G-force training center in Holland. After 3 days of turning around and passing out and almost puking at least once a day, then I managed to deal with 7.5 G-forces for more than 30 seconds. Here it goes. Another challenge we face is that this parachute is so small that every time I lean to the left, or I lean to the right, or even move my head to the left or to the right, the parachute will turn. So I had to be really, really careful because I was flying with some other skydivers on the side with the wingsuits, with a squirrel suit. They were flying on the side, helping me to see how the parachute would perform. If I was not careful enough, I would hit them and knock them unconscious, and of course, that would have been really catastrophic. Another challenge we face is that most parachutes, or pretty much every single parachute that leaves the factory, are tested. This little parachute was not. I was the test jumper and guinea pig at the same time. And I knew, although the guys at New Zealand Aerosports put a lot of time and engineering making this parachute, if for some reason that parachute collapsed in flight, I would get entangled with the fabric and lines. I will not be able to free myself to open one of my remaining 2 parachutes. Another challenge we face is that the backpack or the container where my parachutes are normally fit in are designed to carry 2 parachutes. Now, with this one, we modified or we custom built a container to make sure we could accommodate this one. The problem with this is for 9,000 jumps, I was used to having the emergency handles in the same position. Now, when they build this thing, my emergency handles change completely. We as skydivers, we're trained through muscle memory, repetition, repetition, repetition. So if for some reason something goes wrong, we know how to react without thinking. The problem with this is, as I mentioned, 9,000 jumps doing the same emergency procedure. If I made a mistake, it could have been perhaps 2 parachutes open at the same time, getting entangled and falling down and not being able to release them. One of the things as well that was real fun sometimes, but stressful, was that every time I had a problem, or every time I was flying a size of parachute that I was not really comfortable with, because we were using different sizes from big all the way to small. We were carrying computers around my waist to make sure I was measuring vertical descent, horizontal speed, G-forces. So if for some reason something like this happened, that the parachute is facing the other way and I'm on my back, or I was not comfortable with the parachute, I would basically release that parachute and open one of the remaining parachutes. Cameras. We produced a documentary out of this record, and I'm really camera shy. I don't know how I'm actually doing this in front of you guys. The cameras were following me even to the toilet. I'm not joking. And sometimes I really wanted to have my time with my wife. Used to tell her, hey, I'm afraid. I was shaking. But anyways, I think that was one of the most psychological things for me on the ground. Finally, I think the most challenging one was landing this parachute. This parachute, the surface is so small that every time I break, when you break a parachute, you deform the tail or the lower part of the parachute. So if I exceeded that break, the parachute would simply collapse. And I would fall from whatever height I was flying at all the way to the ground. In the other hand, if I was too late or I gave too little of input, then the parachute would still fly in a lot of vertical speed and I would hit the ground at full speed. As you can see, I managed. I think I lost like 1 centimeter, but I was already like this, a little bit small. And every time I see that Guinness World Record certificate on my wall, it's like if someone presses that play button and the whole 18 months of videos of things play in my head. Thank you. Despite the amazing things that I lived in Dubai, I had a really good salary, I had the life that perhaps I dreamed of when I was a teenager. I decided that something was missing, that I wanted to do more outdoor activities, that I wanted to enjoy more nature and do the things I didn't have the time to do before. For that reason, I moved 8 months ago to Slovenia to hopefully keep the balance between, obviously, a normal salary with a lot of things that make me happy as a human being. You see, if you were to ask me if I'm a wealthy person, the answer is no, and I think I will never be. But if you were to ask me if I consider myself a successful person, the answer is absolutely. I don't have any of the things I thought I was going to have when I was a teenager. What I do have is a beautiful Slovenian wife who has been fundamental part of my success for the last 9 years. And the funny thing is, she's actually 15 centimeters taller than me. Recently, when I moved to Slovenia, because people is very tall, I bought a baseball bat just in case you guys want to try to mess around a little bit. I've lived in 5 different countries. I've traveled the world. And I have many projects that I still want to develop. To be honest, I'm not really looking forward to be retired anytime soon. You see, fear plays a very, very important part in our lives. Fear helps us to avoid decisions that sometimes can take us into trouble. But at the same time, fear is what stops us from achieving amazing things. And that's what I'm here today. I'm here today to face that fear and to embrace it, because I'm really afraid of public speaking. So I compare this fear that I'm feeling right now with the same fear I felt during my first skydive back in 2003. I have a question to ask you all. Are you going to let fear stop you from becoming who you really want to be? Thank you very much.